Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, August 17th edition of Leading Off, presented by Manscaped. My name is Brendan Tuma. You can find me on Twitter at TooMuchTuma. Joining me today is the big guy, the boss man, and the 1892 Fantasy Baseball Roto League champion. It's Dan Harris on Twitter at DanHarris80. How are we today?
Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. I'm about to celebrate my 185th birthday. It's very exciting. No, this is good. I'm glad to be back. I will be serious, even though I've been insulted right off the bat, to say you and Mayor crushed this podcast yesterday. Now, in fairness, my expectations were like so low on the floor, like barely. I was just happy we got the broadcast going. But you guys were fantastic. So much so that if you're watching on YouTube, you see I am in the host chair and Tuma is in the guest chair. But I don't know, man. Tuma hosted. Like, awesome. I'm letting him host from the wrong chair. It doesn't matter. That's how we're rolling. But kudos to you guys. You did great. I'm glad to be here and be insulted all day long.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to do, and a lifetime of Mets and Jets games have kept those expectations in check for you. So Mike and I appreciate that. It was a bit of a light slate in Monday Night Baseball yesterday, but there's still some things to get to. And look, anyone listening to a fantasy baseball podcast here in the middle of August is clearly into baseball and fantasy baseball. And something that Mayor and I talked about yesterday is it's crunch time in a lot of leagues. Like, this is the time you might need to make some tough drops and really be on top of the waiver wire. And it's just go time, Dan. And I don't know if you're feeling that in your leagues as well.
Yeah, it's tough. What's funny, Brendan, is I don't know how many leagues at this point, like 7, 8. Some I try to cut down, but there's enough out there, and they're all at different stages. Like one, I'm in the final week of playoffs. One, I'm so desperately trying to make the playoffs. I had this huge lead, and I lost Bieber and Glass now, so my team is just dying. I'm just trying to sneak into the playoffs. I'm in another Roto league where I'd basically given up on it, still made moves, and it's having the greatest second half of any team in the history of mankind. There are a lot of people checking out right now, so you can really do some damage on the waiver wire if you're really picky about weekly matchups. This is now like I'm like however many weeks we have left, 6 weeks or whatever. It's like 6 different weekly seasons for me. I'm just playing it week to week because I'm just streaming the crap out of what I can do. It's a fun time for fantasy baseball, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to get in and give the Peanuts and the Cracker Jacks some info that they can use to help win their leagues this year. We're going to start with our 3 ups. And number 1, I think it has to be future Hall of Famer. I think, the entire Fantasy Pros staff is on board with that. Future Hall of Famer Joey Votto collected his 2000th hit on Monday night. Suddenly the Reds are just 1.5 games back. I mean, with Votto at this point, there's not a ton of fantasy takeaways. He's just a stud. I think it'll be interesting to see where he's ranked next year, but do you have any takeaways just on, Votto continuing to be amazing?
First of all, the Reds are 1.5 game back of a wild card.
The wild card, yes.
Got it. Okay. I got nervous from my Brewers bet, bub. Don't do that. I'm just kidding. So do I have thoughts on Votto? Number 1, I have thoughts on you because you were on Votto. Brendan, you and I are in a league together, but we talk all the time. You, me, and Mayor text all the time. You were in on Votto. I was not in on Votto whatsoever this year, and I just kept like rolling my eyes at the Tuma. Like, Tuma has his guys. He loves his guys. He's been phenomenal this entire season. The fact that he has 26 homers and he just kind of was like, I'm just hitting homers now. This is what I'm doing. Baseball's not supposed to be that easy. In terms of like actual outlook, like this, he's a no doubt Hall of Famer in my mind. I assume he is for you too.
Yeah, he is. I was just trying to poke some fun at Joe from last week.
Oh, I believe I know. Yeah. I know exactly what you were doing. Yeah, I assume though that you were on the train. Yeah, he's fantastic. It's awesome to watch, and he's been like a true fantasy asset this year. And the good thing was, Brendan, despite how much you hyped him and we started getting on board, he was available in a couple of leagues like 2 weeks ago. Like, he was still out there. So really, I mean, check your league for all I know. But yeah, he's having an amazing season.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about, type of things that you can take advantage of in fantasy baseball these days just by paying attention. Moving along, Garrett Cole made his return. He missed about 3 weeks after testing positive for COVID. 5 2/3, 1 run, a 9-1 K to walk. The ERA on the season's down to 3.04. He did have a pitch count in this one. I know he might not be the consensus number 1 starting pitcher, But now that we kind of have some perspective of the whole sticky stuff and everything that went on with that, where are you at with Cole? Still just top 5, a little more inconsistent?
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel that great about any pitcher at this point, that there are question marks with everybody. Since he's back, I will probably have him ranked third. He's top 5. I mean, look, for me, you've got Scherzer, you've got Lynn, who's just guaranteed up there. You've got Bueller and Woodruff and Wheeler and Burns. So I'm not going to argue too much about the way you ordered them, but for me, it's probably Cole, who's at least in the top 5, maybe not my consensus number 1, but I have a few concerns about him at this point. I think he's kind of overcome that initial, more probably psychological issue with the sticky stuff than I think even physical.
I think for Major League Baseball purposes, it's kind of fizzled out. And again, like,
Yeah.
football's taken over a lot of the news cycle, but it hasn't been as, big of a deal, it seems. But speaking of Tuma's guys, Touki Toussaint. Now, when you and I first started leading off back in 2019, I think there was 2 under the radar pitches. It was Adbert Alzolay and
Yes.
Touki Toussaint. We were just so excited about him, but
So pumped.
Tuki's back. He had 6 1/3 innings of 2-run ball with 7 strikeouts last night. His ERA is at 4.01. But since he returned on July 20th, it was just really one horrible start where he gave up 7 runs. Otherwise, 5 of 6 starts, he's allowed 2 runs or less. If you just look at his baseball savant, it looks like he's throwing his sinker way more. I love finding a reason for why someone might be, performing a little better now. This is the exact type of pitcher who most fantasy players probably aren't paying attention to right now. Do you have interest in Touki, or is this just, oh, that's one of Tuma's guys?
Well, for the most part, it's just one of Tuma's guys because that's what my initial instinct is with all these guys. I have some interest with Toussaint. Part of it is that the Braves are playing incredibly right now. They have a relatively soft schedule. So I like Toussaint. But again, he's a guy, he's got a 4.01 ERA right now, but a 5.14 FIP, a little over his head. So he's an ad at this point. I think you need to stream him in the right matchup, but he is not a guy who I am just plugging into my lineup and starting regardless of matchup. He's really more of a streamer. Still, certainly at this point, streamers are gold because you can get away with it because so many people are checked out, but not in every starter for me.
Like you said about pitching, there's just not, when you were talking about Cole, there's not a lot of pitching to get excited about. Our Monday pitching standouts, there aren't that much. So that goes to your point about Touki Toussaint. Speaking of a lot of pitchers not being around, Cole Hamels is our first big down. He goes on the 60-day injured list without ever throwing a pitch for the Dodgers, and his season is done. Cole Hamels.
I mean,
the transaction, I think, for the Dodgers, it was Cole Neftali Feliz, the former Rangers closer, was involved in that, and it was a lot of throwback names in one transaction.
Yeah, I mean, I was always a huge fan of Hamels. He was a guy who, probably because I used to watch him dominate my Mets forever. But yeah, I mean, it's not like we were expecting all that much from him this year or anything like that. So if you were relying on Cole Hamels, number 1, you're a terrible fantasy baseball player. But number 2, you should probably just move on now. And, he has a nice career, but it's all over.
Yordan Alvarez left the game with an upset stomach. Don't like seeing that. And then our last big down is Giancarlo Sant. He went just 1 for 4 last night. If you look at his season-long stats, his OPS is barely over 800. Since the All-Star break, it's barely above 700. I think the Yankees have a big playing time crunch coming up once Rizzo comes back. What they're going to do between Rizzo and Voit and Stanton and Gallo. I don't know. There's not a big takeaway here. Your trading deadline's probably passed, and it's not like you're going to drop Stanton, but it's been a pretty big disappointment this year.
Do you understand why, Brendan? Because I've been looking at it, other than his barrel rate being down, you look at all the other, he still hits the crap out of the ball for the most part, right? His max exit velocities actually the highest of his career. I mean, and that's really more than even average exit velocity. Max exit velocity sort of determines power, but it's 92.2, 94.9 miles per hour is top 1% of the league in average exit velocity. His hard hit rate is 56.2%. His strikeout rate is manageable. He's walking a ton still. Why is he struggling? Do you have any insight into it?
I do not, like you said, there's not a ton in the Baseball Savant StatCast numbers. I kind of just think he's someone who has had all these nicks and bruises for forever, and maybe they've just kind of piled up this year, and he hasn't been able to fully stay healthy. But I don't have confirmation on that. It's just a hunch.
I mean, I do think that the only thing is like before Rizzo came down with COVID, Voit was basically going to the bench, right? Like that's essentially what Boone said. So you think though, I mean, Voigt's been fine. He's been good since he played and he deserves a spot in a major league lineup. But do you really think that they're going to play Voit once Rizzo comes back at the expense of Giancarlo Stanton?
I think it'll be a lot of mixing and matching. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly
Okay.
how it's going to shake out with that, but
Yeah.
unless they play Stanton in the outfield more.
Yeah, I really don't see it. I mean, I'm looking at I'm not what they'll do, just why he's struggling so much. It's not like he's swinging out of the zone ton more than he has in his career. I mean, it's less than he has in his career, for the most part. His swing percentage, everything looks kind of in line. His contact percentage, it's all normal. Like it's all Giancarlo Stanton. So I don't know what it is. And I think if I roster him, like there are some guys who you just kind of hold at this point. And like, yeah, you can put them on your bench, look at the matchups. But like you said, there's not much you could do right now. I guess I just cross my fingers and hope for the bounce back over the final couple of weeks.
Yep. Moving on to some Monday pitching standouts. Wade Miley, 7 shutout. His ERA is down to 2.84. Talk about things we can't explain. Wade Miley's got to be at the top this year. And then really only the other pitching standout we have from Monday's slate is that Chad Green tossed a scoreless ninth. He picked up his 4th save. He had 3 blown saves since his last actual save. That was a mouthful prior to this one. Yep. So I don't know. Aroldis Chapman's still out. If you need saves, I guess you can go with Chad Green.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The chasing saves part of the season is the most. I mean, I am willfully starting Tyler Clippard in a league. So you got to do what you got to do to get some saves wherever you go. So that's fine. I'm not I don't know the timeline on Chapman. I saw him throwing in the outfield, the other day. So hopefully that's a good sign. I guess go with Green. Wade Miley, I will just never go near. I'm willing to take an L on a guy who strikes out 7 batters for 9 and just not have him in my lineup. Like, oddly enough, I will roll with Kyle Hendricks till the day I die. But like, I will avoid Wade Miley, who's just basically the best version of Kyle Hendricks right now. I will not explain that. Okay. I've been doing this podcast for 4.5 months. All right. I get to say whatever I want and do my own opinions, but that's how I roll.
That is the boss man speaking right there. Time for my least favorite part of the podcast, and it's time for the Manscaped read.
Yeah.
So Manscaped, the lawnmower 4.0, the optimized lawnmower 4.0 trimmer is waterproof, so you can groom in the shower and not have to worry about making a mess on the bathroom floor. Did I mention wireless charging? The lawnmower 4.0 new wireless charging system uses electromagnetic induction, which can help battery length last longer. You can get 20% off and free shipping with the code leading off at manscaped.com. That's the code leading off at manscaped.com for 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Joe is a saint. I will never understand how the bravado he brings to that ad read each and every day.
Correct. That Joe, I know what most people say about Joe. He doesn't have a lot of talent. He brings down the show. He's generally useless. But when you have to do one of these Manscaped reads, right, you kind of realize like, all right, I get why they hired Joe. I mean, that's it. Yeah, no, the Manscaped reads. But I will say, Brendan, because I know you're a young man, you're probably embarrassed. You haven't had to do this. This is very true. Well done. That's Brendan showing that, by the way, on our YouTube screen. All right, I have many Manscaped products. We try products of every one of our sponsors. That's just the way we do it because we want to be able to endorse it from personal experience. There's stuff like as much as Joe makes a cool production out of it and stuff like that, there's stuff that's top of the line. Like it's really awesome. And they've got tons of stuff, by the way, like body wash and all this sort of stuff too. But it's great stuff. You really should check it out. Anyway, that's my actual plug for it. So done.
I feel like a 9th grader reading that ad read sometimes, but okay, I'm going to throw you 4 names here. Possible streamers for Tuesday. Just let me know yes or no. Are you interested? Luis Gil versus the Red Sox today.
Isn't it Heel? Isn't that how they pronounce it?
Okay, Luis Gil.
Do the accent. Let me hear it.
Luis Gil.
Oh, Mike. Oh, you had to roll a little bit. Yeah. No. I'm not trying. Look, I think that Heel is an interesting guy, but I'm not starting him against the Red Sox. Personally.
Yeah, I wish it was a better matchup. So I'm assuming no Jordan Montgomery versus the Red Sox in the doubleheader.
I picked up Montgomery for his 2-start week, which I assume that he's having this week. So he's in one of my lineups at the expense of certain other ones. But if it's a single, like I can move him in and out. I'm not starting him now.
Casey Mize versus the Angels. He's been struggling lately.
No, I don't like Casey Mize in a good day, even though I should, because he's been absolutely fine, but I'm not going near him.
Last one, John Means versus the Rays. Tough situation here.
I can't. I can't. I love John Means, just generally speaking, but whether it's the injury that he is still coming back from, whether it is the sticky stuff issues that he's had a couple of, decent starts, over the last, he got bombed the last time out against Detroit. So you get bombed against Detroit. I'm sitting you against the Rays for at least one start.
I'll never forget John Means' first start this year. He was dealing, and I tweeted out John Means business, and the FantasyPros Twitter account tweeted at me just saying like "you're fired" or something like that.
I know.
And I then came to you and Mayor, and was like, "Who is this? Like, why is the FantasyPros Twitter account?" And you just responded, "You're like, well, you deserved it."
Yeah, you did. I get it. John Means business. Yeah, I've heard it. I get it. To be clear, I have no control over the FantasyPros Twitter account. They are wonderful social media managers. But I agreed with their assessment that you were fired. Even though you're not a full-time employee, you were still fired. Sorry.
It was a wonderful owning of the Too Much Tuma account.
That's how we roll.
Yeah, so not a lot of pitching streamers to go around. That's why you got to pick up Tukey's Toussaint. Don't forget that. But that's because hit offense has just been incredible. And this happens every year. Offense, league-wide BABIP tends to go up as the summer months come along before going back down in September. Jonathan India, again, he went 3 for 6 with 5 RBIs. He is the National League Rookie of the Year at this point.
Yep.
Every Atlanta Brave hitter basically went off. The Braves have won 11 of 13. Freddie Freeman was awesome. 3 for 4 with his 26 homer. Ozzie Albies is in an insane hot streak. This one's interesting. Dansby Swanson, Mike and I talked about him yesterday. He had 2 more hits, 2 more RBIs, 2 more runs. He's on pace for over 30 homers, which I don't think a lot of people realize that.
He got off to such a bad start. So there were a couple of guys, we talked about this in the draft season. There were a couple of guys that we really liked. One of them was like a guy like Victor Robles, who has not turned out well. But Dansby Swanson was one of my guys. And I remember I have a big jelly bean league with a co-manager. That's very important to us. And I remember we got Dansby Swanson. And I remember texting him right before this season started. I was like, I'm telling you, man, I think it's going to be a huge campaign for Swanson. I think it's going to be a major, major breakout. Look at his trends. And he has been trolling me like basically up until last month or a little before. Swanson's out of control right now, absolutely out of control. And you've seen, like, when you look at everything, he's not walking quite as much, but his trend line in OPS has just been going the right way for years. And what I love about him is he's basically, not only is he going to approach 30 home runs, but he's going to be a double-digit steals guy too. I don't really think that he needs to be talked about a lot more. The whole Braves team, as you mentioned, Brendan, going absolutely nuts, and it's easy to feast on some crappy pitching like they've been facing. But Swanson with 24 home runs, 72 RBI, 9 steals. This is an awesome season, and he's just 27. So in dynasty leagues in particular, goodness, I'm buying to the full extent.
Yeah, investing in the Atlanta offense lately has definitely been a good move. Swanson is someone I struggle with because like the April and May were so bad that I'm prone to kind of give up on a player in that situation. Whereas, especially if you play roto leagues, you really want to have that patience. The exact type of player similar to that, who we just know at this point, Brandon Lau. He went 3 for 4 with 2 homers. He's up to 28 on the season. I think we're at the point with Lau, kind of similar to Gallo. You cannot overreact when he's slumping. You just need to get him in your lineup, set it and forget it, and don't think twice about it. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, the average is terrible. Obviously, it's 233, but 28 homers, nonsense at this point. Yeah, every time you look, he's just been going nuts. It's a really delicate balance. And you don't play a lot of roto, right, Brendan? Because we talked about it.
I prefer head-to-head. We've talked about this a little bit. I do prefer head-to-head.
So I still play roto. I'm like old school because, again, I started playing in the 1700s. So that's when roto was really big. So I like it. So I'm much more prone, almost to a detriment, to hold on to players who, I project players before the season. So I like live in, that's what I hold on to for me. So a guy like Swanson, I wasn't close to dropping. I held on to Josh Bell throughout the year. A guy like Matt Chapman, I was close to dropping, but I ultimately held on to just because there really wasn't anything better. Now he's starting to come on a little bit. But a guy like Lau, I think he's just at that point where you got to suck up the fact that the average won't always be there, but the power will be. So when he slumps, you mentioned it, like Joey Gallo, I think that's basically right. That's how you view him. Somebody who's going to slump, it's going to be annoying, but for the most part, you're just going to ride the wave as best you can.
Yep. Quickly finishing up some other hitting standouts. Matt Chapman, who you just mentioned, homered for the third straight game. He's coming around. Luis Robert had 3 hits, including a homer last night in the White Sox win. In 6 games since coming back, he's hitting .375 with 2 homers and a stolen base. So fantasy managers have definitely been rewarded by having Luis Robert back. And then Mike and I were talking about some Rockies hitters yesterday, and he said, Tuma, are you a Connor Joe guy? And I said, no. And then he homered, and it was his 29th birthday yesterday. The Rockies have 5 more home games this week. Is Connor Joe interesting to you at all, or just a streamer?
I mean, I think that at this point, every Rocky, you need to, like, Diaz at catcher, where I'm struggling at catcher, I drop him when he's on the road. As soon as they're home, I pick him up. I think that's what you can do. Even with a guy like Connor Joe, I will say we're in the finals of the Fantasy Pros Insiders MLB League. And one of the sharpest fantasy baseball players I know who plays in here, not an analyst, but one of the sharpest guys, picked up Connor Joe this weekend. And I was like, I should have seen it coming. So I imagine he's going to hit like 6 home runs this week. But he is a guy who you can stream when they're at home, like almost every Rocky, and then just fade on the road.
Was that Blaine who picked him up?
It was not Blaine. Blaine got bounced, actually, in the playoffs already, thankfully, because Blaine basically dominates all fantasy sports.
Exactly. Some Monday duds. Joe Adele went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. Breaks my heart. He's hitting .234 with a .613 OPS. The strikeout rate is above 30%. Doesn't need to be rostered.
I don't think so. I don't have any problems if you want to hold them, but I'm not forcing myself to hold on to any of these kids who struggle when they first come up.
Cal Quantrill was someone who was getting some publicity, but he gave up 3 runs in 5 innings and 8 hits. He gets the Angels next. I'd be a little scared about that matchup. Daniel Bard had a horrendous blown save. He's the closer, but he has a 4.53 ERA and a 1.53 WHIP, so he's killing your ratios. Something I asked Mike yesterday was about Craig Kimbrell. If you do play in a league that doesn't count holds, again, the White Sox yesterday, Kimbrell in the 8th, Hendricks in the 9th. Would you drop Kimbrell? It feels uncomfortable, but I think you have to.
Yeah, I'm totally fine to do it. The only thing I will say is that if you're doing okay in pitching right now, it's really not a terrible thing to hold on to Craig Kimbrell, get 3 innings and like 6 strikeouts a week and be okay with that. But other than that, yeah, this does not seem like some sort of committee or some sort of play the matchups, which there wouldn't be anyway. It just seems like Hendricks is in the 9th. And he's established enough where he'd have to blow like 3 saves in a row to have a chance at Kimbrell. So I am okay with dropping him.
When I was looking for duds, I was looking for pitchers who got blown up, but I saw Matt Harvey got hit hard. And then it just got me thinking, like, why is Matt Harvey still around? I mean, he's on the Orioles. It doesn't matter, but can't they just give that spot to a young kid? Like, why Matt Harvey?
First of all, I may have missed this because I did not watch this game admittedly. I thought Harvey was pitching really well to start, and then he just got blown up at the end. But I don't know, man. I don't think the Orioles have the pitchers that they're like, we really got to get this guy some starts in the majors. Sometimes the ability to eat innings is an ability that works in the major league. So, and also I feel fondly about Matt Harvey, obviously, for reasons that I feel bad that we ruined his career, but it was worth it to almost win the World Series. So, yeah, let him keep pitching as long as he wants.
Moving on to some news and notes. Jesse Winker was placed on the 10-day IL, but it sounds like he could return when first eligible. As a corresponding move, the Reds brought up top prospect Jose Barrero, who I know Dan has a bunch of thoughts about, the 23-year-old Reds shortstop.
What? I do not want anybody who is less than 38 years old for it, but yeah, is that like an inside joke? Am I supposed to have thought, or just that he's young? Is that all?
No, he's more of like a real life prospect because he's a great defender and everything. Yeah. So no one to get excited about.
Okay, good. I was like, oh no. I was like, I hope I'm not supposed to actually want this kid because I do not.
Ryan Mountcastle is on track to return from his concussion on either Tuesday or Wednesday. Good news for Mike Mayer. Unfortunately, Trey Mancini exited Monday's game due to leg soreness. Carlos Rodon threw from 90 feet. He's expected back next week. This is an interesting one. Clayton Kershaw played catch for the first time since being shut down. He admitted it's looking more like a September return. How do you handle Kershaw? Another one I get a lot of questions on is Bieber. These two guys who, and even DeGrom for that sense, aces, but they might not be back to the very end of the year. How do you handle guys like that at this point in the season?
Well, first, Kershaw can't come back, I think, until September 8th because he's on the 60. So there's no chance even of him coming back. I'm going to be shocked if DeGrom pitches meaningful innings at this point. And Bieber, who the heck knows? I'm okay with moving on from all these guys if you have to. Again, the binary drop or keep, it's a little tough because it depends. If you have IL spots, great. But if you're struggling, if I see them on the waiver wire, like I'm willing to take that risk right now because at your best case scenario for any of these guys is what, 2 starts, 3 starts, maybe. So you can, if you can hold them, great, because those couple starts will be maybe meaningful. But I'm not killing myself to do so.
I think the best case you can make for keeping them, like the optimal situation to hold on to them, would be if you are in a head-to-head league, especially if you're doing well right now, because those starts might come either in the semifinals or the finals, so they'd be more valuable. So that's the case where I'd want to keep them. Javier Baez fielded grounders prior to the game. He's eligible to return Sunday. Jesus Sanchez was reinstated from the COVID-19 IL. Trevor Larnach was optioned to AAA. He's been horrible since the All-Star break. And lastly, former Cy Young winner Jake Arrieta signed with the Padres. The Padres now have 2 Cy Young winners on their team, Blake Snell and Jake Arrieta. They might miss the playoffs. Like we were talking about, the Reds at the top. They're kind of struggling in a weird way.
Yeah, what will probably be bad is if the Padres do not make, like, they fall out of contention a little bit. Don't you think they're just gonna? I mean, Tatis needs shoulder surgery. Don't you think, Brendan, that they'll just move ahead and do it? That's something that I would watch. They need, like, you want the Reds to slow down. You want the Padres to win, and they're not winning right now. They do not look good because I do think that the risk of shutting down Tatis, who you guys mentioned yesterday, just comes back and just like, whatever, I'm just gonna homer all day, increases if they fall out of it.
Dan has been slowly trying to ruin Tatis's fantasy value for years
Oh,
now.
I'm not trying to justify the fact that I basically dropped him completely in my rest of season rankings the second he hurt his shoulder, and trying to retroactively argue like that was right. I wouldn't do that. That's not something Dan Harris does. No, I hope he plays for the rest of the season, but it does also hurt my MVP bet for Bryce Harper, the fact that this guy is the best player in baseball, and I love him, and he's wonderful for baseball, and I hope he plays and stays healthy, blah, 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 blah. But I do think, like, that is something that I'm watching if I roster Tatis. If they fall out of it, which they probably won't, but if they fall out of it, I do worry because he is going to have surgery after the season. So I worry that it would be accelerated.
It's a great point. It could extend into 2022 as well, the beginning part of the season. Wrapping up here, Dan, can you help catch us up with the Peanuts and the Cracker Jacks home run?
Oh, yes. I thank Mayor for all of this. Let's see. Randy gets 2 home runs. Randy, come on, man. From Brandon Lau, sole possession of first place with 25 dingers. Lawnmower Man 4.4 moves up to 21 with Matt Chapman. You call Matt Chapman, I don't care how hot he is, I give you mad respects. So did Turf Durgason. He moves up to 18 with Matt Chapman. Dr. Glenn called Adam Duvall. He is at 15. There's an alternate timeline like the Marvel Universe where Dr. Glenn has like 40 home run calls right now and is leading, but he is stuck at 15. I did make a call separately. Thank you to Mayor. I did not hit. Nobody cares. But that's where we are with the Peanut and the Cracker Jacks. Randy leading at 25, Joey P at 23, D. Gordon Liddy at 22, and of course, Wonky Penguin and Lawnmower Man at 21. I will not mention anybody else. That's all that gets mentioned
here. Quickly moving on to DFS for Tuesday night. It's a huge slate, tons of 7:00 games. I am one to prone to always pay up for my pitchers, especially in cash. So I like Corbin Burnes. And then I like Chris Bassett as well, of course. Is there any other pitchers you would consider tonight?
Yeah, I might go with Framber Valdez. I mean, he's not, he's 9,700 on FanDuel or something like that. He hasn't been that great. He's been walking a few. But against Kansas City, Daniel Lynch, I feel relatively okay about it. But for the most part, man, this is not something where I desperately want to go after pitchers. I might consider, if you're paying down, maybe Logan Webb. I mean, the Mets, they're offensively, they're fighting. They're not now like totally dead in the water, but it just looks like the wheels are falling off a little bit. And Webb's been really good lately. So I might go with him if I'm trying to save money a little bit at pitcher.
I was just going to mention Webb. I'm surprised how cheap he is, but it's his success has flown under the radar. That is a Tuma branded guy, and he needs to be rostered in every season long fantasy league. What about some hitters?
Yeah, I mean, look, we can be as honest as possible. Joe lives for DFS, and he's the one who prepares. We'll talk about it briefly, but I'm just at this point, I'm not crazy with DFS. But I do think, again, I look at our DFS optimizer. That's a lot of where I go, which if you are a subscriber and everything like that, you should have access to. That's great. Brendan and I were talking about it before we got on about how it really points you the right direction. And again, at fantasypros.com/chat in our Discord, we have a DFS channel, so you should go there. But I think you can stack a little bit and pick on a little bit Daniel Lynch. Sorry, guys, it's early. I've got like 3 podcasts to do right after this. You can pick on Daniel Lynch a little bit because, again, after his real good start, he is slowly coming down. So I think you can go for like the righties in the Astros lineup, Yuli Gurriel, for sure. I think you can pick on Pittsburgh on Will Crow. You've got Will Smith, who, again, on FanDuel, you don't, catcher first base situation, but certainly he's been as hot as possible. AJ Pollock's on the lineup, Chris Taylor, any of those guys. And I think just generally speaking, you want to look at the Twins this entire week. I'm picked up Kepler in a league just to stream Kepler and Donaldson and Jorge Polanco, who just has been hot as can be against Eli Morgan. Those are kind of some of the hitters that I'm looking at tonight.
All righty, that should wrap us up for the Tuesday, August 17th edition of Leading Off, presented by my good friends at Manscaped. Dan, we did it. We got through it.
Thank God. Are you, is this Mayor tomorrow, or is that your day off, Tuma? Tuma gets a day off. It's going to be me and Mayor tomorrow, and then Tuma, you and me, right? Thursday and Friday?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to plug a couple of things, okay? That cool with you, host man?
Absolutely.
Good, because I'm the boss anyway. Doesn't matter. You guys should know, I started a new NFL podcast, The Kickoff. If you were fans of the original Leading Off, a 15-minute daily one, that is basically this, but for football. It would really help us out and help the podcast grow and reach new people. If you left a little review, and you can win a signed Josh Allen jersey, if you leave a review and go to fantasypros.com/kickoff. Also on our regular YouTube channel, it's not baseball, guys, but this is what we're doing. So I want to let you know we will still be here. We're doing a fantasy fest, okay? An all day 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. live stream at youtube.com/fantasypros. We are having guests on from around the industry. Me and Joe and Yates, Lauren Carpenter, Tara Roberts, we're going to be hosting with all your favorite people. So go check that out. That's all I've got.
Okay. And home run calls super quickly.
Oh, gosh. We are so old. Sorry. My home run call tonight. Who did I think? I think I threw you one, Brendan. Yes, that's right. I did take Joey Votto. I'm going to go with my man Votto for you just to mess with you against, again, the guy who I secretly love, Kyle Hendricks, but who just is coming off a 9-run outing. So Kyle Hendricks. Against Kyle Hendricks, Joey Votto is my call.
This is, again, my reminder to pick up Evan Longoria in your league. That'll do it. We're 2 minutes over. I don't want to get yelled at.
You're
for Dan
fine.
Harris.
No, wait. Stop it. All right. There's no time limit right now. I don't care. You can go as long as you want. Don't feel pressure to keep it to a half hour. This is late in the game. The only people listening are people who, for some reason, really like us. So if you go a couple minutes, I want you to relax. You're going to be hosting this show. Don't worry about it. There's no hard out. You're good.
Next time, it's just Mike and I am putting in the prospect segment of all prospects.
Oh, God. A 75-minute podcast with Tuma and Mayor. Get ready, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. For Dan Harris, at Dan Harris 80. This has been Brendan Tuma, at Too Much Tuma. Have a great Tuesday, everyone.